Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mrs. Copeland. I'm happy to have everyone here. I'm going to go ahead and get the screen shared for you so that we can get started. So, welcome tonight. Welcome, everyone, to our um, Kate preparing for the end of year kindergarten through second grade assessment. I am Dr. Margina Edwards. I'm part of our ELA Academic Services team, and I'll be guiding you through some of our session today. So for our agenda and objectives, I wanted to share with you in this session, we'll be looking at how our students will be assessed at the end of the year. And then we will move on to resources and support that can be used for the home setting. And just wanted to share some of that with you. Sorry, my screen was not progressing the way it should. Let's go ahead and get that going. Sorry about that. Okay, so why should I support my students reading and writing at home? If you ever wonder why so many teachers assign students reading at home as homework, often even 20 minutes of homework, there's a well-known study by Nagy and Herman that indicates that students who read at least 20 minutes daily have a clear literacy advantage over kids who read less or don't read at all. If you'll take a look at the graphic on your screen here, what you'll see is this is why students should never say, I don't have any homework. If you look at student A, for example, on the graphic, you'll see this student who reads 20 minutes each day, they will end up reading 3,600 minutes in a school year and be exposed to over a million words, almost 2 million words. And that puts them in the 90th percentile of how much students are able to read. If you look at student B, who reads just 5 minutes each day, that substantially reduces what they're going to see, about 900 minutes in a school year, which is less than 300,000 words. It puts them in that 50th percentile. So this is where most students live. And then if you are in that student C category, if you take a look, who would only read a minute each day, that is only 180 minutes in that school year, only 8,000 words, and puts them down in the 10th percentile. And so as you can see, that amount of time that students are reading at home is very important. By the end of sixth grade, that student A will have read an equivalent of those 60 whole school days. Student B will have read only 12 school days. Which student would you expect to have a better vocabulary? And which student would you expect, of course, to be more successful in school and in life? As you can see, of course, this amount of time spent reading is extremely important. So the importance of reading, of wide reading on knowledge, this quote by Daniel Willingham tells us that whether or not readers understand a text depends far more on how much background knowledge and how much vocabulary that they have relating to the topic than on how much they've practiced those comprehension skills. What we know is that covering diverse topics, not just reading books, but also poetry, song lyrics, and things like that, covering those diverse topics really impacts our students' comprehension. We know that. We have a lot of research that supports that, and we always want to encourage those use of comprehension strategies, but that role of building their background knowledge is critical. And we build that background knowledge by increasing students' ability and the amount of resources that they read in their words. So, what we'd like to do is give you a few resources for great places to go for book suggestions. We have and I'm going to put some links for you in the chat in a moment. So, we have our best children's books. We have 9 resources for finding great children's books by Pearson Academy. We have the 100 best children's books of all time, and then also our best children's books of 2022 that was put out by Amazon Prime. So I'm going to go ahead for just a moment, take you back there, and I'm going to put those in the chat for you so that you can kind of see where will be able to get to some of those links. Actually, it's not going to let me do that real quick while we're in the presentation. I'm going to add those in a little while. Okay. So another resource that is a great one that you can do is called Storyline Online. If you're not familiar with Storyline Online, we have celebrities, as you can see here, Kevin Costner, Oprah Winfrey, other celebrities that will go on and record. You'll have a video that you can watch. It's a free place that you can go for that. I'll also include that link for you in the chat at the end, and the celebrities will be reading online to children, so it really gets them interested in someone that they've seen maybe on the big screen or on television. I've seen people even like Tim Tebow, for example, reading some books to kids. It's available 24 hours a day for students and caregivers and educators worldwide, and each book that they choose includes supplemental curriculum developed by credentialed educators, aiming to strengthen those comprehension, verbal, and written skills, even for our English language learners. So I just wanted to share that information with you as well. One thing we want you to consider are three factors in selecting texts for our students. Students don't have a lot of choice in the texts that they read at school. Those are carefully chosen for them. But incorporating some choice and interest is key in getting them to enjoy and want to read more at home. However, we also want to be mindful of the lexile level of the text, the level of that students are able to read and their reading ability. If you don't know your child's lexile level, you can actually get that information from your child's teacher. And when you get that lexile level, I'll also share some more information about how you can get that. You'll check the back, you can check the back cover, because many publishers will actually tell you they've begun to print Lexile levels on the backs of books. And there are also numerous apps and websites that you can use to help determine a book's reading level. But I do want to offer a strong word of caution about this, because many books that have a low Lexile level, as far as readability, may still be to contain adult themes. So you want to be cognizant of that. Things like The Grapes of Wrath, for example, The Silence of the Lambs, the Twilight series, all of those books are actually able to be read as far as readability at the third grade level. That's what their Lexile level shows. But of course, the content of those books would not really be appropriate for an elementary age student. So you just want to kind of keep in mind to choose books that are fun, engaging, and interesting for your students. But they would be consider that the reading level should not be the only consideration, giving them some choice. Another good rule of thumb, if you don't find information about that Lexile level and you're not sure of whether a book might be appropriate difficulty for your child, would be to use the 5-finger rule. So you can have your child to turn to any page in a book and start reading that. And ask your child to hold up one finger for each unfamiliar word on that page. If they get 5 fingers up before finishing that page, then that book might be too difficult for them to read independently. That doesn't mean that they couldn't choose it for you to help them with, but it just might be a little bit more difficult for them on their own. So a little bit more about those Lexile levels and how you can find that information. If you'll take a look on the screen, we have a table for you here. This actually comes from the College and Career Readiness for Lexile levels. And the levels that you see listed beneath the pink arrow, those are at the end of the year expectations for first and second grade. We don't measure Lexile levels for kindergarten. So we're looking at the first and second grade end of year expectations. So you'll see that by the end of the year for first graders, we would hope that they're reading somewhere in between the 190 Lexile to 530 Lexile level. And then in second grade, between the 420 Lexile to 650 Lexile. So that gives us an idea of about where they should be. Now, there are a couple of ways to find out how well your child is reading. In kindergarten, we do have a blended learning app called Waterford. You're probably familiar with it because our students are able to do that even from home through our blended learning website. And there is a Waterford app that you can download as a parent to get information and log in to see how your child is progressing on Waterford. iReady also is our blended learning app for first and second graders, and they also have their own information on there where you can see. And the iReady app will actually tell you the Lexile level of your students. And again, if you are curious about that Lexile level, you can ask your child's teacher to send you that information. And first and second grade, it's on the parent report from iReady. But we also have two other types of tests that we give in Duval that are about helping to see where a child is, how they're rating their ability, and that is through the STAR program with their Renaissance. And we have STAR Early Literacy and STAR Reading, and that's from everyone from K through 5, kindergarten through 5th grade students. So I'm going to give you some details about that because this is what we're preparing for students to be taking here now at the end of the year as we get going. So what this looks like, if you see, these are the dates that we administer the STAR test. It's administered 3 times per year across the entire state of Florida. So the STAR test is a way for us to see how students are doing compared to all other students in their grade level in our entire state. And so if you see, their students completed this in in August to September, in those first 30 days of school that had to be completed. We've already completed progress monitoring window 2 as well, because that was finished in January. And so the last one that we will have coming up will begin in April and go through June. And that just gives schools a window of time that they can administer that according to their school's needs in the classroom and seeing when that can be done. So also what that looks like in for our students is because there are two different ones, Start Early Literacy and Star Reading. So if you look on the screen, you can take a look on the left side, you'll see the grade levels. So kindergarten students will all start with the Star Early Literacy Assessment. All kindergarten students, no matter what their ability is, that's what they start off with. But if they score at or above the level on the test, there's what's called the scaled score of 852. And that's just the score that tells us that they're actually reading. And when they hit that level, then if they do, they would go up to the STAR reading test for that next window. So you see like PM2, they would go up to STAR reading. And then again on progress monitoring 3, PM3. Okay. The same thing happens for first graders. They will also start with that STAR early literacy assessment. And then if they do score at or above that 852, they would take the STAR reading test the next time. Now, at any point that the students are not meeting that 852 on STAR early literacy, they would stay there. Okay. But if you notice one thing that is different in first grade, is at the end of the year, this upcoming progress monitoring window that they'll be taking in April, all first graders will need to attempt the STAR reading, not the early literacy. And that's because we want to see what can the students read. And if at that point they do not score at least 852, then they will go back to the STAR early literacy test. In second grade, it's just a little bit different there. They actually all start with STAR reading at the beginning of the year. And if they can't do it, if they are not able to reach that 852 score, then we can take them back to the STAR early literacy if we ever need to. Okay, so that's just a little bit about which tests that they take. So what do the tests look like? Well, all of the items that students take are multiple choice. You see an example there on the screen of what that might look like. All of the items are timed. For early literacy, the items they have 90 seconds, so a minute and a half, which means that students need to be able to focus and pay attention. The test can be paused at any time, and the teachers are really good about watching for when they need to do that. For example, if a student has to go to the bathroom during the test or something like that, they could pause the test. But each time they do pull up an item, it is timed. So they have 90 seconds for each early literacy item. Once they get to the star reading, they start off and they have 60 seconds on the first 10 questions, and then it moves up to 120 seconds for all the other items because it does progress a little bit. The test also, speaking of progressing, is adaptive. And what that means is that if students are performing very well by answering many questions correctly, then it will continue to give them harder level content to see how high of a reading that they can do. If they miss several questions, and it will give them easier content to bring them back down so that it won't push them too far to the point of frustration. One thing to keep in mind, though, is the test will never ask them questions about benchmarks or skills that are outside of their grade level. So, for example, if a second grade student is showing really strong reading ability and it takes them up to third grade level sentences or texts, but their questions that they will be asked would still be on skills that they would know as a second grader about that text. So just wanted to let you know about that. Finally, what you'll see is that the test length is only about 20 minutes. Even if it's pushing them a little bit and giving them harder content, the test will not take them very far past that approximately 20 minutes time frame because we don't want to have students sitting for a long time trying to do that. Okay. And here's some more sample items of what this would look like. So this is an example of a kindergarten star early literacy item. So you'll see on the screen there are no words because this is the early literacy test, and the students would hear someone speaking to them. So the script that would be spoken to them, they will be wearing headphones, and they would hear for this item that you see on the screen, it would say, "Listen carefully. The pictures are barn, gate, calf. Pick the picture that has the same beginning sounds as camp, camp." Okay, so that's what they would be listening to, trying to match that beginning sound. And then in first grade, this is an example of what they might see. And they might hear, "Look at the words, pick the word make, make." And so they would have to listen and choose the correct word. So that's the STAR early literacy, what they would see at the kindergarten and first grade level. Now, once they get up to STAR reading, so let's see a kindergartner, again in that first early literacy window at the beginning of the year, let's say that they reach that 852 number, and then they are going up to the STAR reading in that second or third window. So this would be a question they might see. The ball is green. Green tells how the ball blank, but that would not be read to them. They would have to read it themselves because at that point, according to their score, they're readers. And so they would be choosing that correct answer. First grade, it's going to be just a little bit longer. It would tell them here, Desi has a new puppy. The puppy likes to bark and run fast. The puppy is small, but she will get bigger. And what word tells how Desi's puppy looks? Trying to describe there, of course. And then at the second grade level, a little bit more complex. You'll see it's Rosa's. Rosa didn't know how to ride her bike. She would fall over when she got on. Rosa kept trying again and again. Then one day she was able to ride down the street. What lesson does this story tell? So, of course, they're having to think a little bit more about a lesson or theme that they would be learning through that story, which is that second grade benchmark. So that's a little bit about what those students would see. When we take a look at how you could see how your child can score on that, we do have a way that you can do that. You can actually go to the parent portal. And again, I'll put that link here in the chat when we get finished with the presentation. It's through the Florida Department of Education. They have a FAST portal on their website. And then you would click there where it says students and families. And then you would, the next screen would take you to various resources. For example, right there on the top of the screen, you see view sample items for VPK to second grade. That's actually where I was able to get some of those samples for you to see. And then, of course, for other grade level students. But at the bottom, you'll see there's a link there that says the family portal. Okay, so when you click on that family portal link, then it will take you to a screen and ask you to enter your information, and then it will share your child's scores with you. Okay, now one thing that you will need is your access code, which you can find on your Parent Focus account. So again, I'm going to share that information with you in the chat in a few minutes and show you how you can get that information. And that will tell you basically how you can set up your Parent Portal account, your Parent Focus account if you've never done that. And then once you're in a Parent Focus account, how you can get to that access code right there in the portal. Okay. And of course, you can always reach out to your child's teacher or school to help you with that information, but we've got some resources for you to try to get to that on your own. So, one of the things that we want to encourage you, now that you know a little bit about what that test will look like when your students are taking that, are some other ways that you can help prepare them at home. The bottom line that we want you to understand as parents is that parents who read aloud to their children are teaching literacy concepts to them just by simply sharing those books, encouraging them to listen, to ponder, make comments, ask questions, talking about those books. That's a way that those students can really engage with it. For our early readers, just hearing words that rhyme. Of course, Dr. Seuss is very famous for that, but listening to words that rhyme when you say them aloud, that really helps build strong readers. You would be surprised of what a difference that actually makes. And even after children have outgrown picture books, they'll still enjoy hearing that story read aloud to you by you as your parent. Create some valuable time for them. And but be flexible with them. Don't feel like that you have to read through a whole book just because you picked it up and you tried that one. If you need to abandon that book because your child doesn't like the book and it's just not working out for your family, that's okay. No one is meant to enjoy every single book, and no one, especially child, should be forced to read or listen to a books that make them boring, because then what we do is create children who don't want to read. And what you want to do is create that to be a positive experience for you and your children. Um, so another thing that you can do with them besides rhyming in books like Dr. Seuss books is there's a lot of songs that are involved with rhyming. So what you see on the screen here is a book called Down by the Bay by a singer named Raffi, and they'll have songs that go with that. Um, the Hey Diddle Diddle, the Name Game, fun songs that you can sing with your child, because the brain research that we have shows us that rhythm and song really help a child retain those skills or concepts. It's a fun way to engage them in wordplay, some things that you can do. Also, nursery rhymes, those, old fashioned Mother Goose rhymes that we can recite and sing. You can sing the rhymes. Of course, reading those nursery rhymes, even using finger plays to act out a rhyme, that's actually really good for students to connect with characters, helps them really understand the characters and how they feel through that. So we really encourage you to do things like that. And then some additional resources that are very good for you. Again, I'll put some links here in the chat in a few minutes. Khan Academy, which is a free resource for parents, and they have their own app for that called Khan Academy Kids. So it's a great resource as well, very highly educational. We have also Wide Open School, which helps families and educators find some trusted resources to enrich and support distance learning. So they go through and they look at which resources they could be trusted, that you can trust. It's also called sometimes Common Sense Media. So you'll see that. And then uh, students every, whoops, I'm sorry. Okay. Um, so then we have the Jacksonville Public Library as well. And just so you know, they don't have any late fees. You can use, your student can use their student ID and have no late fees. So it's not something that will be such a frustration for you as a parent. And also we have, if you see on the screen, some reciprocal teaching bookmarks, which are some ways to help you talk about a book, gives you ideas of what you could do to talk about some books that your child is reading at home. And we'll include this link for you as well in the chat of where you can actually download and print that bookmark. So that gives you an opportunity to help talk to your child about what they're reading. So another resource that you're probably familiar with right now is Raz Kids. This is another blended learning app that we use here in DCPS. Our students use it at school, but then they do have access to do it at home. And the reason why I say that you likely may be aware of it is because we're currently in the middle of a Raz Kids reading contest for our kindergarten through second grade students, where if they're reading, and the kind of sort of competing against who's doing the most reading, who's doing the most time with Raz Kids and things like that. And your students may be encouraging, trying to ask if they can do that at home, because we've been giving some prizes to our students across the district for doing that. So that's something that you can always access. Raz Kids is a wonderful program that we know really is very engaging. It has over 800 leveled books online for students that they can practice reading anytime, anywhere. And then it will also, so it'll read the book to the kids and then have them read it on their own. And then it'll give them a little online quiz, an e-quizzes that is what it calls it, that checks their comprehension. And there's even Spanish ebooks and quiz translations for our ELL learners and bilingual students. And the data management and reporting tools that Raz Kids has makes it really easy to track our students' progress. So this is a program that we really love. So, some extra things that you can do with your students to help their phonics skills if they're kind of early readers or just not quite there. Of course, we know that Waterford for our kindergarten students is wonderful because that really takes them from where they are and gets them some help for those early phonics skills. Teach Your Monster to Read, which is another free site that gives them practice in phonics. We also recommend Starfall, which has a lot of games for our students. And not sometimes there are things on there that are not free that you could actually subscribe to, but has lots that are free. Includes letters and games, videos, and books that are all related to that. And then of course, iReady, which is another one of our blended learning apps for our first and second graders. So in order to access, so Teach Your Monster to Read and Starfall, I will share with you those direct links. iReady and Waterford, what you'll do is I'll share the link for you if you don't know how to get to that, going through our DCPS website, and then you would choose blended learning, and your child logs in through the blended learning page on our website, and they can access those. Some other things that you can do with your children to kind of encourage some real life reading is to be able to show your child a recipe, go over it together, have them help sound out some of those words, read with them, ask your child to help read that recipe as you're working and explain why each step must be done in a special order. And if that kind of makes sense to you, part of why that helps our students is understanding that a lot of texts and a lot of stories do show us a sequence of events that happen in a certain order. So we know that recipes are one of those that does that. Also, when you're eating out, have your child try to read the menu for themselves. Have them try to, share what they can read on there. Obviously, may not be able to read all of it, but they can definitely help and encourage them to try to look at what they want. And then, of course, grocery shopping. You can have your child help read the ingredients. To be able that they needed for that recipe getting ready. You can have them, if they're not quite readers, just having them pick all the things, for example, in the cart that start with B that you might, with that B sound, and have them try to name those. Just try to engaging them with what they're doing in those early phonics and reading skills. Those are some extra ways that you can incorporate that. Also, supporting your students with their writing skills, encouraging them to keep a journal by helping them build some excitement to be able to do that. It can be a journal idea that you have with them that you want them to write about, or it can just be their own choice of doing that. Help kickstart the activity by identifying some topics that you want them to write about, friends or school or home, maybe an activity that you did together as a family. And then when they write about that, you could consider writing also as well. Keep a journal yourself and compare your notes. So if you both went on a shared experience, maybe to the zoo, let have you both write about that and be able to talk about it at the end. And when you get to the end, read aloud. Have them, share with you what they wrote as an author. Children love to feel like that they're authors, and that really encourages them. And what we also know through research is that when students who practice writing regularly actually become better readers. That process that they go through to sound out words to write down really helps encourage them as readers and helps build that reading knowledge. Also, our Benchmark Academy, this is our Benchmark Advance. We have multiple different texts available as well. And one of the things on our blended learning, so you'll notice some of these, this would be some of the books that the students use at school that are already made for them. But then we also have a lot of books online through what we call Benchmark Universe. Benchmark Advanced Curriculum has created multiple books online that students have access to. One of the things that they have, especially that's very interesting, is their knowledge building topic libraries that the students can access. And you can actually the students can actually play those books. Like it will read to them and highlight those words to help assist them with those books. So it's extra reading that they don't always have time to get to all of them at school sometimes, and they want to be able to read a little bit more. So this is another resource that we have. So, some things that we want you to remember is to stay involved and connected with the school, of course, and your child's teacher. Take advantage of all of the resources that we have for you, including those that we have for you online. Many times we're out and about and we have your phone. You can have your child reading there, even if you don't have those physical books in hand. And also encouraging your child to read a variety of books, a variety of different texts, whether they're literary, so meaning that fiction type book, or informational nonfiction books, because that helps your student really help build all of their knowledge around lots of different types of texts and keeps it very interesting. Okay, so my information, sorry. So you'll see my information on the screen. That and I am Dr. Margina Edwards, and you see Edwards 8 at duvalschools.org. I am one of your ELA specialists so that you can always reach out and ask questions if you have any.
All right. Well, I definitely want to honor everybody's time. It is so precious and we never have enough of it. So we'll call this a wrap. Dr. Edwards, can't thank you enough for your expertise, for your wisdom, for all the content that you shared with us as caregivers. And ladies and gentlemen, we can't thank you enough for taking precious time from your evening and joining us tonight to gather all of this information. And we will, again, have it available to view on our website prior to the window opening for this assessment. So you can review it along with any of your friends or family members that you think might benefit from this. All right, if you haven't grabbed any of the links from the chat or the evaluation, if you'll stop right now, run over there and grab those links so that you can refer back to them at a later time. And until then, I enjoyed myself and we hope you enjoyed yourself. We hope to see you again at another Parent Academy class very soon. Good night, everyone, and thanks again for joining us.